Alright guys, welcome back to the channel, and I want to say thank you for 300 subscribers. I know I hit 300 subscribers at the beginning of the year and I've been meaning to put this video out, but I had some problems recently with my original Canon EOS, which it ended up, I think it was the shutter ended up breaking on it, or the glass prism, because it's currently locked halfway up and I can't seem to get it to go free. So I've been waiting and saving up, and so I finally bought myself something a lot nicer. It's a Sony A7 Mark III, and currently I've got two lenses for it. I've got the 50mm lens, and I've also got the standard, I think it's 20mm to 70mm lens, which is on it just now for filming this. I did film the end of last video, the rewind video, with this camera, and you can notice the difference between all my other video footage and this nice 4K video footage. And at the time of filming that, I had realised, oh, I may have actually needed a microphone for it, because the audio on it's quite appalling. Now I've got a microphone for it. I'm hoping the audio quality of this video is a lot better. And I thought, as a way to celebrate my 300 subscriber video, is to show you my RC collection, because that's what I seem that most of my subscribers are now actually here for, than the exploring videos and everything else. So I'm gonna cut to footage I filmed maybe a couple of days ago. Well, to start off my collection, we start with the oldest chassis I own, apart from the Nitro one, which is in bits. Underneath this Toyota AE86 is one of my current restoration projects, is a Thunder Tiger Sparrowhawk VX or something like that. I know there's a couple clones like from Team Associated. I think it goes under the name of Apex or something. So at the moment I'm currently repairing it to be back into a running drift car, as I don't actually have a drift car in my collection, and this one has been multiple things over its life. Touring car, rally car, drift car, a buggy at one point where I had jacked up the suspension and put bigger tyres on it. So I thought, as it's 8 years old, I'm going to restore it back to its original glory and back to being a drift car, and I'm going to end up purchasing another AE86 Truno body shell, because this one, I don't know what happened with it, but when I was painting it, turned out all nicely. After a few runs, paint started flaking off inside, and then I tried cleaning all the original paint off and it didn't come off. But I did make flip up headlights for it. As now I've got the 3D printer, I'm going to make some actual 3D printed headlights for this, because you can only get the pop-up headlight kit for the Pandora AE86 body. So I'm going to model my own and make flip up ones available for this one. Alright, on to the next car. This is a, if I remember correctly, a Hobeo Hyper H7, I think. Don't quote me on that one. But it's set up as a touring car, and I've raced it a couple times, and each time I've actually raced it, I've managed to break a good few parts on it, like front suspension, rear suspension. The last race that I actually took part in, down to mine and some other drivers' error, they spun out and I didn't notice it because the body shell on the other car was sort of the same colour to the carpet, and being colourblind, I didn't really see it. Went straight up over its bonnet, took a body clip with me, and ended up breaking the rear suspension, which I've now replaced. This is running a brushless setup by Horizon Hobbies. I can't remember what the actual setup is. Running a drift servo because I needed something quicker than the crappy servos I have. The tyres, they were just cheap ones I ordered for another project, and when they arrived, one of the wheels was actually missing a chunk out of it, so they sent me another set. But they're not really that sticky compound, but I've just been given like 3 more sets of proper tyres to run with this. This one's a running usable one, but it's a little bit overpowered or overgeared for actual touring car racing. I was mainly using it for speed runs, so when I take it to the track I have to dial it down to about 40% on the throttle so I don't overshoot or spin out. Alright, third in my collection, and probably one of the most important ones I own, is a WPL C14. And I know a lot of you who have subscribed to me for WPL related content will be saying this is a C24, but I got this right back when WPL had released the C14, and then when they finally released the C24, I went and bought the bed for it. And this truck itself is to blame for me getting back into radio controlled cars, boats, and God knows what else in the future. But I always wanted, when I was a lot younger, I always wanted the RC 4-wheel drive Trailfinder 2 with the Mojave body, or aka the Toyota Hilux Mark 1. This is a this is a Mark 1, and in the UK we call them Mark 1s before anyone comments anything, because we never got the round-eyed, or we got the round headlight version of this body, but we never got the generation before. So after coming across this on eBay for, I think it was maybe 25 quid or something, I thought, you know what, it probably is too good to be true, and I was actually wrong. It was quite a reliable truck for about 3 or 4 months. Stock plastic. It was the kit version, so it had the nicer, softer tyres, the better motor, and it used to run perfectly fine. Now it's fully upgraded, metal axles, metal drive shafts, and a 2-speed gearbox, but it's a bit broken. It needs a new gear shift servo, which me being lazy, is sat in the back underneath the canopy, and it also needs a new ESC because it burnt out the other one. And I'm almost considering, because I think I used a Tamiya red on the cab and actual Hilux red on the bed, it doesn't really colour match, so I'm considering putting it back to being a C14. Alright, fourth one in the collection, and the next oldest one I own, but none of you probably recognise it in this form. This is my first 1/10 scale rock crawler, which has now been passed on to my girlfriend. That's why it's now got this new Tamiya Sand Scorcher body on. And it is actually underneath a FTX Outback 2, which is now really heavily modified with 3D printed parts and upgrades. So let's have a little look underneath the body. First of all, you would have seen in the B-roll, it has an LED light kit, which was slightly being a pain to get to work for some strange reason. I think her controller receiver for this is dead. So starting off with, it's got magnet mounts to hold the body on, because I couldn't think of any other way of mounting it. It's now got a chassis mounted servo, which I had to install a panhard bar to stop the bump steer. My own custom designed body mount slider rail, and it takes a battery along the front. It used to take a 3S battery, but that 3S battery I own stopped working. It's now got an SEX10 gearbox in it, an unknown motor, which I think I pulled out of an electric scooter. It's got a 25 kg servo, Hobbywing 1060 ESC, maybe 100, maybe 110mm long shocks, which over standard chassis and flex, that is a stupid amount. And I'm considering putting up all the parts to do a conversion kit of this up on Shapeways or My Mini Factory, I think it's called, so other people can do a conversion. Literally only modification really needed done to the chassis was cut like a millimeter, or cut like just the front off the chassis rails so the body fits. Alright, this time I'm just going to do two because they're sort of semi-related. This right here was a rush project because I heard we were going to get snow maybe within a week. So I managed to get my hands on a Brooder Unimog, a WPL B1 chassis, a snowplow, and a couple of servos, which this is all controlled by an aircraft controller. Once we had the snow, I started really heavily modifying it. So it's now got the full metal drive shafts, full metal axles and metal rims. It's got the WPL FJ tyres on it. It's also got a functional tipper bed, but probably the world's most slowest tipper bed. That's just it getting stuck. But you can see it takes ages. But you can fully tip all the way up and then fully tip all the way back down. Alright. It's got a cheap eBay circuit board for the flashing lights. I replaced the LEDs. The motor is no longer the original 2-speed motor in it. It's a FTX it's an FTX Outback 1 motor, which couples straight up onto the 2-speed gearbox nicely. Provides it with a stupid amount of speed in high gear and a lot of torque in low range, which is quite nice. This has also got probably the most attachments any of my vehicles have. It's got the snowplow, this road sweeper which is modified with a WPL standard gearbox on the side. This actually takes up all channels on my 6-channel radio, so forwards, back, side, left and right. For the front 3-point linkage is up and down because it locks out, and then for the tipper bed is that way and that way. Front attachment, so like the road sweeper, is this switch, and gearbox is this switch. And there's a little port underneath which accepts the servo cable. This is just all modified. That's a servo motherboard, then wired through and under onto a motor, and that runs happily, runs fast enough to flick up the... Alright, moving on from the Unimog. This is another brooder conversion I've done. It's a Caterpillar Bobcat, or no, skid steer, and at the moment it's still a work in progress. It's got a 25 kg servo in here with a custom 3D printed mount. Underneath the driver's seat there is two 10 amp ESCs, and it's running 4 N20 motors for the drive train with WPL axle ends. Then it's going on to WPL rims, onto some Playmobil tractor tyres, which will be a reoccurring theme for a couple of my builds. And they work really nice and they give it quite a bit of grip to move about. I just need to wire a servo up to the front for the bucket on this. I need to also either upgrade my controller or get another receiver for my aircraft controller and put it in, and a small enough battery to hide within the back. It has got a bottom chassis plate, but I haven't put it on just for the purpose of this filming. Alright, next on the table is a current ongoing project. I did originally have it as a 6x6. Then I had so many problems with it, I ended up breaking it down and just putting it in the parts box. But now I've dragged it back out because I missed having a 6x6. And I wanted to do something a little bit more custom, since I had a 3D printer now available. I'm not going to take the body off on this one, because there's some secret stuff going underneath that body which I don't want other people to copy I've given hints out to certain people, but this is going to be a little bit more overpowered than WPL expected. But next things I'm waiting for to be delivered is the full metal drive shaft and axles, because when I put this back in the parts box, I ended up taking parts out for other vehicles and so on and so on. So that's why it's missing the front hubs and missing 2 of the front wheels, because they ended up on the skid steer in the previous one. But this is also another Brooder Unimog body. This is a 3D printed back cab bit I designed. That will also probably end up on Shapeways or my mini factory sooner or later. The next bit on this project is to build a bed, or like a little flat bed on it, because I have an extra tipper bed similar to the yellow Unimog, but I don't want to use that because it looks a little bit too fat. It's like sticking out the sides for this. And then the next bit to be made for it is some wheel arch and also some fuel tanks underneath to make it a little bit more scale, and also to hide the battery, as the interior is going to be very limited with what's hidden underneath that body shell. I'm also waiting for some bigger Playmobil tractor tyres, because running these littler ones don't seem right with such a big body on it. So I've ordered some newer ones which should come out a lot bigger and fill up the wheel arches. And if that's giving you any hints on the fact that I'm going with big tractor tyres, is this is going to become a mud truck slash, so almost like a semi truck to pull trailers. So that'll give you a little bit of a hint what's going on underneath. Moving on to the next one. Next up on the table is my WPL C34. This is the Toyota FJ lookalike. It is almost complete. It just needs the cage welded on, or welded together. At the moment, most of the bar, or all the bars on the roof, are being held together by magnets, so that needs welded. And I've also got some canvassy material to make a black canvas roof. It's far from stock now. It's running some TRD rims got from Thingiverse, and I got the original creator of these rims to make them a little bit bigger so the tyres stay on without needing glued. It's got the upgraded winch. I got rid of it was almost like bungee cord wire for it, and replaced it with some fishing line. It's got oiled filled shocks on it. It's got my own custom designed 3D printed half door, which will also be going up on, it'll be going up on Shapeways and my mini factory. I just need to make a few modifications so the wing mirrors properly fit in. Got fully painted interior. It's got another spare wheel, and it's a lot faster than stock as well, because same as the yellow Unimog, it's also had a motor swap. This is actually the full metal version, so everything underneath is full metal. ESC is hidden away up underneath where the seat is. It's got another FTX Outback 1 motor, The radio's hidden underneath the fake engine. Apart from that, it's a pretty good truck. Now a lot faster than normal, which slightly cancels out it being a crawler, but it still can crawl, but it sometimes struggles with it. I know I'm also missing one of the indicator, it's snapped off, and I'm missing the lens for the other one. So that's going to be a part I'm going to have to order from the WPL website. Alright, breaking away from the land vehicles for a little bit. Well, not for a little bit, this is literally the only one I own. This is my Vector RC boat. Running, but it is missing one of the fins on the rear. But it doesn't really stop it. It's brushless, 3S. Does a lot. I'm considering painting it a brighter colour because it's quite hard to spot when it's halfway across a lake, being how small it is. Apart from that, it's a boat. That's all I can say. Well, time to move on to maybe not the smallest thing I own in the collection, but these are two toy RCs. One of them was an original conversion, which was this little one here, but then I ended up taking the electronics out of that and putting it into the Gravedigger, because the Gravedigger is a lot more fun to drive about and popping wheelies. They both started their lives as toys. Saw them in the toy shop, thought, oh, they would make good little bathroom runarounds, because, well, weirdly in our house, our bathroom is probably the biggest room in the house. So it makes a nice little course to drive stuff around when it's nice and wet outside. So I have these two. This one's probably going to end up in the bin soon because it's just a rolling chassis and I can't be bothered to redo all the electronics for it again. This one's running, it's a 10 amp PSC. It's running a little 9-gram servo for steering. It's running the stock motor which came in it. It's running a little 2S where the plug is now for charging is coming out there, and the batteries in the original battery mount. And it's running a bunch of wheel weights on the rear because it likes to happily pop wheelies. So keeping with the theme of small micro RCs, here is my WL Toys K989, I think it is, with a Nissan GTR body on it. The body is actually a Tamiya kit, which would explain why the wheel arches are actually slightly different. The wheelbase is stretched on the kit, so I can no longer use the original Ford Focus body. This body is a Tamiya one. The tyres on these are the tyres from the model kit. It's fully upgraded with the aluminium chassis, braces, links, arms and hubs. The chassis is actually fully carbon fibre. The chassis brace is carbon fibre as well. And I'm going to go with a magnetic body mount. What's left to do, why it still looks like this, is I need to 3D print or model and 3D print some fender flares to hide the fact that I have butchered this body shell, and then it needs a coat of paint and the bonnet to be glued in, not held in by electrical tape. So moving on. Right, I don't think I need to introduce this big beast, so I've just gone from one of the smallest to the largest vehicle in my collection. This is a HGP 407, also known as a Tamiya Bruiser clone ripoff. At the moment, I'm sort of fed up with this. It's the worst thing to break parts on, and I own 3 of these. At the moment, this one has the recurrence of snapping the steering link on the hub on the front wheel. It's always on the side where the link attaches to the servo, and I've been fed up replacing it, so he's been sat on the shelf for ages. So what happens is the screw gets ripped out of the hub, so there's no threading left in the hub, or the steering arm bends. This has of course got the front mounted steering servo mod on it, just to make it steer and a lot more usable. What other mods I've also done to, well, improved the steering is relocated the shocks, so they used to be up the front here and they are now back further here. In a up and coming video you'll see I actually burnt out the original ESC out of this one, but I do have a spare one of them ESCs which is being run in the first car in my collection, the Toyota AE86. This is now running a Hobbywing 1060. I relocated the switch so it's outside and it's a lot easier to get to. Apart from that, the gearbox in this one has been perfectly fine. With the, well, perfectly fine with just the normal shifting. It still is terrible with gear shifting. So I think time to move on to something a little bit smaller again, and then I'll come back to more Hiluxes. Right, this little beast needs no introduction because I'm pretty sure most of my subscribers are here because of it. But this is my WPL C24. This is an actual C24 because when it was released I went and bought the kit. To go into further details, there is a whole separate video about it, but at the moment it's currently in a sad state because, well, no ESC, no radio, and I am currently working on trying to make the front end with front independent suspension so I can get a bit more steering lock out of it, because this is actually used as a drift truck now and it drifts very, very well. But the only other problem is, because I done a motor swap on this again, this is a 1000 RPM gear reduction box to a FTX Outback 1 motor. It seems to like to shred the little gear pinion in it, so I need to replace that. So moving on. Here we have another sorry looking mini truck. This is the bigger brother to the WPL mini truck I've been building. This is based on a HGP 407 body frame. First of all, it's got a shortened rear axle, which is from the Boom Racing Toyota Land Cruiser. It did have a Tamiya lorry front axle on lowering blocks. This used to have leaf springs in the rear on lowering blocks, but after seeing a video online and saw how this certain guy done it, I air ride it once the air ride decides to kick in. But the body's not properly mounted anymore because I nicked the magnet mounts for the VW Beetle, but it's on air ride in the rear. So similar to the WPL mini truck is it's getting front independent suspension, so it can run air ride in the front. It's currently running a 4-link in the set in the rear, and it's also running a 19-turn brushed motor with a 1.5 gear reduction gearbox, because I couldn't find a 1.3, which isn't stupidly expensive. And it's got a weird gear reduction in the rear axle, I can't remember, but it turns the 19-turn motor to about walking speed. For wheels, I'm running Team Tetsun, I think these are Sunflowers, steel rims. These are adjustable offset ones with some cheap eBay tyres, which I had searched around for ages to find ones which look similar to the Toyota Proxy tyres and their Toyota Proxy stickers I managed to get from, I think it's R31 House or something like that. Apart from that, the body shell itself, it needs the Toyota sticker on the back. It's got full light kit. Apart from that, it's almost, the body's done. Just need to work on the chassis now. Alright, now onto my trail truck. This is a HGP 407, believe it or not. This is something I've been wanting to build. I know earlier on in the video I said about wanting a Trailfinder 2. But once I saw the frame from these and saw how more realistic it is to the original version, I thought I must have one. Let's start from the front to the back. On the front, it's got a Viking winch mount. It's got a 1-winch tag thing. It's got a set of ARB bull bumpers from RC 4-wheel drive. The body itself is the original HGP 407 body. Custom stickers made by a guy on eBay. One of the little stickers from the WPL trucks looked a lot nicer on the dash. Reason why there's water inside is because we took it out the other day and I washed it, and water droplets seem to build up on the inside. Fully custom 3D printed interior designed by me, which utilizes the original dash. Then on the rear, it's got the stickers, well, either the the two sticker companies, one which was helpful, the Monkey Puzzle, and Uncle Luke's. Never again with Uncle Luke's, let's not talk about that. And then there's Asia Tees, Boom Racing stickers. This is another sticker made by Monkey Puzzle. They also done the front sticker. The Toyota decals by RC 4-wheel drive. This is an RC 4-wheel drive Bruiser Pro rear bumper. 3D printed hitch mount because you can't attach a hitch onto this. Cheap eBay hitch. Right, let's take the body off. Right, at the moment underneath the body it is running the original gearbox, which I absolutely fucking hate in this truck. It's running a 19-turn motor because the gearbox itself is fucked, so I've locked it into 4-wheel drive low range. The gearbox itself hangs up on a lot, so what I'm planning to do is drop this, not the brushless motor in it, drop this up at the front, and it's got a reduction box, and then it will go onto a transfer case to try and solve the problem. Rear axle is a genuine Bruiser Pro rear axle with RC 4-wheel drive red leaves and the original shocks just painted yellow. It's got an RC 4-wheel drive fuel tank, the radio and ESC are both in there. It's running a Hobbywing 1080 ESC. It's running a RC 4-wheel drive front axle. I think it's a Yota 1. It's sadly running a cheap Chinese drive shaft because I ended up moving the front axle forward a lot more, so the original Bruiser drive shaft didn't fit. I think these were RC 4-wheel drive wagon wheels with Mickey Thompson Baja MTZs tyres on them. Running 3D printed locking hubs on all except from one wheel because that fell off the other day and lost it on the beach. Running a 20 kg servo for up at the front, and it's just running a cheap Chinese winch, but the motor on it burnt out, so I changed the motor to a RC 4-wheel drive 1 winch. So it's a lot better than the original Chinese one. And the custom skid plate I made and got someone else to weld up because I don't have a welder anymore, and the adapters I made because the bumper would sit up a lot higher. I'm hoping for the gearbox parts to come soon so I can transfer it over the next few days, because once I get rid of this behemoth of a gearbox, the newer gearbox will actually sit a lot lower, and hopefully I'll be able to get a 3D printed 22RE engine on it, just because I like scale, to the point where it is scale enough. It's got underneath or behind these wheels is brake discs and brake calipers. You may be able to see through there, but I managed to get a set of I think there's Secura D3 disc calipers on them. All I needed to do was shave a tiny little bit off the axle casing and put a copper shim around it so it would sit tightly. Up at the front, the brake calipers are actually a lot larger, to the point where it's almost the same diameter as the inside of the rim. So what I had to do there is drill a hole into the actual hub and thread it and put a bolt through, so it doesn't rotate like it has once I took it through mud. Apart from that, that's my new trail truck. I think I'll show you why it's got a tow hitch now. Right, this, not fully done, but is my 3D printed overland trailer. I designed this all myself. Still working on it because next thing I'm waiting for a few parts before I design the roof for it is I'm waiting for another set of dirt grabber tyres for the spare wheel. It needs to be redesigned on the drawbar because I made the frame a little bit smaller to work with the suspension. I'm also considering putting a Bluetooth speaker in there just for out on the trails. It currently is going to be painted a orange colour similar to the Toyota FJ I showed earlier, because all the ones I've seen online are grey and I don't particularly like it. At the moment it's just been primered, or it's been sanded, filler primered and then sanded again, so it's ready for another coat of primer and then painted again. Alright, moving on because my camera battery is at 14%. This is to replace my FTX Outback as being a crawler slash bomber slash rock bouncer, because since I gave it to my missus to use, and I've been using the Toyota Hilux I just previously shown, I want something a little bit more capable than a trail truck, so I thought might as well do something a little bit balls to the walls and overkill. But this is going to be getting twin Wraith front axles, so it'll be rear steer. That will be powered by two 25 kg servos. It will be getting a twin motor SEX10 setup because I thought, fuck it, two motors, why not? If I'm doing two steering axles, I might as well do two motors. And I think I'll try and make it to be maybe 3 or 4S capable, just because I know I'm probably going to end up breaking a lot more parts using it, but hey-o. Alright, there's my collection of 15 cars, 2 boats and 3 trailers. Sadly, I don't actually have any other room to, well, even to store the projects I've got going on just now. Since recording them video clips, it's been a couple of days and a few more parts have actually arrived from them. So my HGP 407 crawler slash trail truck I've been building has now finally got a gear reduction box in it and also the transfer case. I've had the spare wheels arrive for the trailer, or the camper trailer which gets pulled behind it. I've now also 3D printed the skid plate for the Wraith build and dropped on some links I had laying around. I've rebuilt the Toyota AE86, so that's back to being semi-stock. It's still got a few more things I need to work out on it. I want to go back to, I originally had on the rear, I can't remember what it was called, but the suspensions, I think it's rolling suspension or something like that. Or it helped the car go around corners a lot better on the rear end. If I can find the photo of it or remember the name, I'll either put it down here or up here. The drive shafts and axles arrived for the 6x6 today, so at the time of filming. Apart from that, not much else has arrived. I do need to start ordering the parts for the rock bouncer build. I've got a whole list waiting for parts for that. I know I do need to start repairing all my other vehicles. I think so far I've got touring car, the mini grave digger, oh yeah, the Toyota FJ finally got its roll cage welded, so I just need to sew up the canvas top I've got for it. It also, I don't know if it needs a new steering servo, but all of a sudden the steering has become really loose, so I would say. Like, you can turn it by hand and you don't feel any of the gears, which is quite odd. 3 link and a pan hard on the VW Beetle rock crawler. Apart from that, nothing else has been worked on since filming them other little clips. And I've noticed most of the video clips I filmed here, there's like a nice lens flare about here. That's because I've opened up the curtain beside me so I get a bit more light on my face. I don't know how well this is going to turn out editing, but I just really hope. I keep on looking down here because I've got the camera on the tablet. So, sort of editor's side note here is I've just realised this may actually be the longest video I've ever filmed and edited. So far it's took me about a day and a bit to edit. It's took over 2 days to film. If you're including this little clip, it's like 3 days. And it's also the longest. It is now overtook my second uploaded video, which was a camping trip. That was 40 minutes long. And this, right now, while I'm doing this segment, is at the 50 minutes and 30 seconds. So it's maybe ends up 55 minutes long to an hour. And I will be very surprised if anyone actually watches all of this. So if you do, please leave a like and comment, share, whatever, because I've still got another day probably worth of colour grading this bloody thing. So back to the video. So this, because on my original Canon camera, it had a flip out screen which you could view backwards. This one's got quite a nice screen on it, but you can only fold it out. You can't flip it around to see yourself. So I'm using a remote viewing. I need to somehow mount the tablet up closer to the camera so I'll stop looking down at it. It is a little bit annoying. Alright. I think this is where I'm going to end the video off. I say maybe when I hit 400 subscribers I'll do a Q&A if anyone wants to ask anything. I'd say leave it down in the comments, because at the time of filming I'm now 320 possibly. I've not actually checked or uploaded anything this year, so I don't fully know. So thanks for watching. Please subscribe, hit the bell notification to know when I upload anything, because there is 2 videos I've already filmed and I've been waiting to film this and release this before I release them 2 videos explaining the difference in camera quality. Alright, see ya!